Logframe, a tool for implementing project ideas and making EU-funded project proposals. Civil Society Development Association, SMART, Rijeka. This video is from the MRAC programme, a network for developing the capacities of civil society organisations in the Istrian counties of Primorje-Gorski Kotar, Lichtenstein and Karlovac. The MRAC programme is implemented by SMART, a civil society development association in Rijeka, the regional centre for partnership support in collaboration with the following associations: Sunsecret in Pula, Pokretac in Korenica, and LAG Valle Scolapis in Ozail. This programme is implemented and sponsored by the National Foundation for Civil Society Development, and it is an integral part of regional civil society and the development of local communities in the Republic of Croatia. For more information on the MRAC programme, visit www.mrac.info. What is a logical matrix or log frame? Those engaged in developing and writing EU-funded projects will certainly be familiar with logframe as its mandatory attachment. At first glance, it appears to be a standard chart to fill in. However, logframe is much more than that. It is a tool to aid the development of a project idea in such a way that it includes everyone that should be included, clearly defines the issues that the future project aims to solve, sets the goals, i.e. is realistic of what and how much can be changed, lays out the right course and capacity of actions, determines the possible risks that may affect project success, and sets clear indicators that enable a realistic overview of how successful the project implementation is during and after the project is completed. Even though the log frame is just an attachment of the project application, it should be done first, as it provides a realistic view of whether the project makes sense, if the actions planned lead to the achievement of the goals, and indicates how successful the results will be. Before we start understanding the steps of the log frame, let's see what one looks like. The log frame consists of 16 cells divided into 4 rows and 4 columns. The first column, the so-called logic of intervention, is the backbone of our future project, where we define the project's general and specific goals, expected results, and planned activities. The second and third columns, indicators and checking sources, are connected to the first in a way that the expected results, specific and general goals are defined according to the scale model of quantitative and qualitative change expected throughout the project implementation, and specify the information sources of the expected change. Under activities, the human resources, location, and technical support that are essential to the implementation of the project, as well as the source of information for measuring progress, should be written, rather than indicators and checking sources. The last column is filled with preconditions, i.e., assumptions in terms of activities, results, and general goals. The assumptions and preconditions are always determined affirmatively, whereas the leaders themselves have no influence over the essential activities and the listed changes to the project. As you can see from the column, the top cell is always empty, and we'll see why a bit later. Now, let's begin to fill in the log frame. Let's consider an organisation for improving living standards for the disabled. Similar organisations often work in many areas to facilitate and improve the living standards of the end user, particularly to marginalised groups whose human rights are not respected and often violated. Although the Constitution of the Republic of Croatia directly guarantees special treatment and care for the disabled and their social inclusion, this target group can seldom participate entirely in society. They face various issues related to the nature of their disability, on the one hand, as well as issues relating to social life, health insurance, mobility, and employment. As with any project limited by resources, time, human and financial capacities, it is unrealistic to expect that one project could deal with the issues of many target groups. To achieve maximum success under time constraints, it is preferable to focus on a single issue. We will focus on employment for the disabled. As the Constitution of the Republic of Croatia guarantees equal rights for all its citizens, including the right to work, it is crucial to develop projects that facilitate access to the labour market for the disabled. If we want to develop an effective project which brings positive social change, it is important to set a logic framework which consists of 2 stages: analysis and planning. Making a detailed analysis of stakeholders, issues, and goals prior to initiating a project plan and filling in the log frame is of utmost importance. The first point we start from is stakeholders analysis. What does the word stakeholder mean? Stakeholders are individuals, organisations, and institutions interested in our project as possible users, partners, allies, or even opponents. We begin the analysis of stakeholders by writing down all possible stakeholders while considering the following questions. Whose practices and prospects are important? Whose active support is essential for project success? Who has the right to participate? To whom is this project a threat? Once again, with the issue of employment for the disabled, we will try together to make a list of our stakeholders. Disabled people, the families of disabled people, the Ministry of Social Policy and Youth, the Disability Ombudsman, the Ministry of Science, Education and Sports, the Croatian Employment Office, vocational secondary schools, the Croatian Employers Association, the Social Welfare Centre, Health and Social Welfare Departments of the city and the region, and associations for the disabled. When defining stakeholders, it is important to be specific and provide, if possible, the names of specific people that may join in the later stages of analysing and defining the project if necessary. This list may be created in the following way. Once the list of stakeholders has been created, bearing in mind the time constraints, it is crucial to recognise key stakeholders. In order to define key stakeholders, 2 criteria should be considered: interest in the future project and the power of influence. A simple log frame may be used where all stakeholders are listed in 4 quadrants in relation to their interest and influence. It is evident from the table that the key stakeholders are the ones with greater interest and more influence. In the previous example of the disabled and their employment, the log frame for recognising the key stakeholders may appear as follows. The log frame for recognising the key stakeholders may appear as follows: the Ministry of Social Policy and Youth, the City of Pula, and the region of Istria, i.e. their health and social welfare departments. To understand their stake in the future project, it is necessary to make a detailed analysis of the key stakeholders by using different tools and tables. One of the possible tables is as follows. If we took one of the key stakeholders from the previous example of the completed stakeholders analysis, it would look like this. Once a detailed stakeholders analysis has been made, the second stage of the analysis is introduced: problem analysis. In this stage, the direction in which the project will develop is still unknown. During the first stage, we are only interested in the current negative situation we would like to deal with. We perceive the problem or the need in the negative situation through the lens of already existing experience and other stakeholders while including the users. It would be preferable if the main stakeholders call a meeting where you can analyse the problems and create a so-called problem tree. Problem analysis includes several steps. At first, all problems are listed in general. Everyone has the right to cooperate and contribute. Everyone has the right to contribute their problems. Each defined problem is written on a separate piece of paper in a short and precise manner. In accordance with our problem example on employment for the disabled, the following problems can be listed. The social exclusion of the disabled. A high number of unemployed disabled people. Disabled people's lack of skills on the labour market. Limited or lack of possibilities and vacancies for the disabled. A lack of knowledge and skills to find and apply for vacancies. A lack of information about employment opportunities. A lack of family support for the disabled. No training programme or opportunities for the disabled. A gap between education and the requirements of the labour market for the disabled, and employers' lack of awareness to create possibilities and encourage employment for the disabled. This example contains some of the possible problems. Due to its simple approach, we will focus only on these problems. However, it is likely that other groups of people may detect even more. In the next steps, the problem should be connected by cause and effect to create the so-called problem tree. The easiest way to do so is choose one problem and then connect the other listed problems with the original in the following way. If the following listed problem is a cause, it is placed at the bottom, and if it is a result, then it is placed above the previous one. Yet, if there is no connection, or if it is neither a cause nor a result, we place it right next to the previous one. In our case, that may appear as follows. From the listed problems, we create a problem tree. To check its logic, we read the problem tree from bottom to top in the following manner. On one hand, the lack of knowledge and skills prevent disabled from finding and applying for a vacancy, as well as their lack of information about employment opportunities and family support, which directly contributes to their struggle on the labour market. On the other hand, there are a lack of training programmes for the disabled, which correspond with the labour market, and lack of awareness among employers means fewer possibilities and vacancies for the disabled. Furthermore, the fact that employment possibilities are limited due to lack of skills for the labour market results in a high number of unemployed people with disabilities, thus resulting in social exclusion. The next step is goal or objective analysis. The third step is about creating a tree of objectives and goals out of the problem tree, which can be easily done by turning the existing defined problems from the problem tree that represent negative outcomes and turning them into desired and positive ones for the future. In this way, out of a well-defined problem tree, an objective tree will be created. Its logic works in the same way as the problem tree, reading the objectives and goals from bottom to top. In our case, it will look as follows. Disabled people gaining knowledge and skills to find and apply for a vacancy through greater access to information on employment opportunities and family support leads to their competency on the labour market. More opportunities and training programmes for the disabled through a proper education in accordance with the actual needs of the labour market, and employer awareness to create possibilities and encourage employment for the disabled, would lead to increased employment possibilities and vacancies for the disabled. This increase in employment opportunities and vacancies, as well as the disabled being equipped with increased competency on the labour market, will then directly increase the number of disabled people in employment, reducing their long-term exclusion. Once the objective tree is created and we have looked at it closely, we may come to a conclusion that the issues are too wide-ranging and cannot be solved through a single project, so we must decide on one branch within our objective tree. In other words, we have to make a strategy. Through our problem tree, or objective tree, we may see that one of the branches refers to disabled people's skills and surrounding, whereas the second refers to educational opportunities and employers. Which branch we choose and which strategy we explore depends on several factors. These include examples of setting a direction for disabled people in their skills, keeping them informed about employment opportunities and vacancies, and their domestic situation, i.e. their family. It depends how extensive the problem tree is. The problems on the very bottom will serve as future results of our project. Then top right will be specific goals and objectives, and on the very top, the general goal and objective. The remaining part is to think of activities and ways to achieve the defined results. Therefore, to increase the skills and knowledge of the disabled to search and apply for vacancies, to inform them of employment possibilities, and to ensure strong family support, the following activities will be introduced. Educational programs for unemployed people with disabilities, the creation and distribution of leaflets, creation and distribution of posters, promotion through media, a conference, individual family counselling, a psychological workshop, and individual and group meetings. Now we have all the necessary information to fill in the first column of the log frame. Through introducing activities that will bring results, we have managed to create the project backbone, which will be transferred into the first column. On the basis of interventional logic, we'll further develop our project idea. As seen from the table's content, the activities are detailed and divided into two components. In addition, we have accordingly connected the activities with the expected results, so we can clearly see which activities are leading to which results. In doing so, we have finished the fourth step of our project, defining interventional logic. The fifth step is about filling the last column of the log frame, which is defining assumptions and risks. The column is filled from bottom to top. The bottom cell is filled with preconditions. Preconditions refer to circumstances and/or situations that must be assessed and handled prior to project implementation. While assumptions include a wide range of situations that affect the success of our project, we as project leaders have no influence over them whatsoever. Assumptions are always defined positively so we can easily determine significant ones and add them into the log frame in the same way as the key stakeholders, by coordinating the system with two values. What is the probability that these assumptions will actually happen, and how influential are they on the project's success? For instance, let's take an assumption regarding the employment of the disabled. It might be, Croatian Employment Office actively informs employers about the potential of disabled people and co-finances possibilities for their employment. From the above example, it can be seen that we only add in the log frame the assumptions that are reasonable and will have a great impact over the project's success. The column of assumptions is filled and read using vertical logic. Our activities with a certain precondition will bring about the achievement of expected results. Results with certain assumptions will lead to the realization of a specific project objective or goal. Specific goals and objectives with certain assumptions will contribute to a long-term realization through other projects to reach a general goal and objective. Different projects may have the same general goal and objective. This is an example of assumptions connected with the disabled. We will read the assumptions as follows. Specific goals and objectives. The activities that will be introduced. Education for the disabled on employment, psychological workshops, individual and group counselling, family counselling, the creation and distribution of posters and leaflets, promotion through media, a conference regarding passing a national measure about obtaining equal opportunities for disabled people between 2007 and 2015, and an action plan where the Council of Europe promotes their rights and complete participation in society. These will lead to increased skills and knowledge to discover and apply for vacancies, to obtain more information about employment possibilities, and lead to increased family support. Bearing in mind the assumptions that A, disabled people both take part in and successfully complete training programs, and B, actively seek for a vacancy on the labour market, these measures would result in increased capability to look for work. This also assumes that the Croatian Employment Office actively informs employers of disabled people's skills on the labour market, and the relevant ministries analyse the figures about disabled people in new training programmes and their state on the labour market. Finally, the support of the Croatian Chamber of Commerce in promoting their long-term employment would result in increased number of employed people with disabilities. Once the assumptions have been defined, we proceed to the next step, the identification of indicators. And evaluate how successful the project is once it finishes, it is necessary to set indicators. They describe the goals and objectives of the project and expected results in an operational manner of evaluation: quantity, quality, time, and space. The indicators are written in the second column of the log frame. For the set indicators, it is necessary to define the sources that are written in the third column of the log frame, which will check how and where the set indicators are truly achieved. When defining and reading indicators, as well as checking sources in the log frame, we use so-called horizontal logic. Referring back to our example of disabled people, it might look as follows. So our indicators of expected results would be 75 disabled people who have boosted their knowledge and skills for finding a job, the completion of a 10-day education programme, the completion of 20 family counselling meetings, the completion of 20 individual counselling meetings about employment opportunities, the completion of 15 hours group counselling for 20 disabled people, the printing and distribution of 1,000 leaflets, and the printing and distribution of 250 posters. A regional conference held with disabled people, the Croatian Employment Office, and employers together with 80 to 100 partners from the private, public, and civil sector. The parameters used to measure the results are evaluation forms, a list of stakeholders, photographs, records of addresses for leaflets and posters sent, an agenda and work programme, and a list of increased skills. Indicators for our specific goal or an objective are 20% of disabled people from the Istrian region increasing their skills for the labour market, 35% of disabled people from the Istrian region increasing their presentation skills and level of confidence, 40 disabled people sending 80 job applications to the private, public and civil sectors. Checking sources are reports on external evaluation, reports on project development, and records of the users and their activities. Our main goal and objective indicator is to reduce the number of disabled people on the Employment Office list by 25% in the region of Istria, while the checking source is a statistic report by the Croatian Employment Office. There are 2 more columns on activities that should be filled. Once the activities are filled, in the next column we write down the resources essential for the activities implementation, for instance, employees, equipment, training, education, materials, space, etc., whereas the sources of information for the project progress and its predictable expenses are written in the next column. Following our example, necessary resources are employees, equipment, educational materials, space, and a graphic designer. Our information sources are statistics from the Croatian Employment Office, reports on external evaluation, reports on project progress, a list of users and their activities, and work programs and agendas. The total value of the project is written under an expenses section, followed by an additional attachment with a detailed budget. Thus, we have finished creating the log frame and may proceed to writing the project proposal.